Hey everyone, in today's episode, I've got Jason Cook of the Agency in Geelong. Jason Cook is a local to the Geelong region. He's lived there pretty much all of his life and has about 8 or 9 years worth of real estate experience. He's an agent that I often contact quite a lot. We get on very well. We work with both vendors, obviously, and buyers to get deals done where it works for everyone idealistically. Now, Cookie as well is someone who I'd say I deeply respect and has a lot of inside knowledge about the Geelong market, a lot of unique insights, and not only that too, I'd say as well some knowledge that not a lot of people would probably know without actually being in the region for a long time. He's someone as well that has sort of a good approach in terms of taking care of the relationships with clients. So he's someone who I would actually highly recommend for people wanting to sell their properties to actually use in the region as well. And that's funny coming from someone who is a buyer's agent on the buyer side of things, because he does take good care of people and does do the right things by people. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's going to be a very deep dive onto the Geelong region. Let's get started. All right, good morning, everyone. Today I've got Jason Cook with us. Jason Cook is a local agent from the agency in Geelong, runs his own agency down there. He comes with tons of experience. He's a Geelong local and he knows the market pretty much back to front, alike to me. So how are you today, Jason? Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, going really well. Real sunny winter's day. Not quite. It's a bit cloudy actually in
Yeah.
Geelong at the moment, but it's typical winter. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Great to see you, and yeah, super happy to be having a chat about the Geelong market. And anytime I get to have a opportunity to talk about this fantastic place down in Geelong, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And so, look, Geelong's an area that I guess a lot of people that I do work for and work with are very interested in. A lot of the listeners are interested in. So do you want to just give everyone, before we get into a general chat about it, how a bit of your background and how you got to where you are today, obviously running your own agency down in Geelong?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, effectively, yeah, I've always had a passion for property. I think the great Australian dream is to own your property and invest in property, and I suppose I've been one of those guys from fairly early on. And yeah, it's probably been a weird story. I suppose I've been in sales for 20 years, selling different things, insurance and mortgage broking. I was a mortgage broker at one stage, a banker, sold utilities, insurance, and then obviously most recently in real estate. But I realized, I was a very good performer selling different things over the years, and then realized, hey, it was a no-brainer. I was like, well, you make more money selling houses, and I have a passion for houses as well, and the area. So I was like, well, hey, it's a perfect fit. So I got into real estate about 8 years ago, started my own, actually right at the start, which was really crazy. Most agents don't, be that aggressive. And yeah, fair to say I probably failed a little bit. I wouldn't say fail, but you learn, right? So I was quite ambitious and didn't really know what I was doing in the real estate space, and then went over to Ray White and had a 6 year career at Ray White. And I tell you what, they were a fantastic company to work for, and really expanded my career. I ended up, as I left only a few months ago, I left as the top 3% agent in the Ray White as an elite agent, and then saw an opportunity. The agency aligned with my values and gave me an opportunity to be able to start my own business again. And yeah, I'm about 5 weeks in, and yeah, it's absolutely awesome. I love working for myself. It's actually, I'm already a self motivated person, so don't need a boss sort of telling me what to do. But I just love property and helping people make as much money as they can, or invest wisely if we can, or just it has the rigors of real estate, but at the end of the day, it's all about people, and I just want to help people as much as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think importantly as well, the good thing about real estate is you get to develop obviously those long-term relationships with people as well. I know me and yourself have had one for quite a few years now, and and I guess right when no one wanted to buy properties in Geelong as well. So, I mean, I guess even with the vendors as well, you have relationships with people for years and years and years, families and various other things. So, I mean, when you like doing that stuff, it probably doesn't really feel like you're working, does it?
Well, it's a good point, Sam. Like yeah, funny you mentioned, like I've now got 70 buyer agents on my books at the moment that I've got a network with, and they say your net worth is your network. But my number one, my first ever buyer agent that I dealt with was Sam, and yeah, we've gone back a few years now, probably 4 years ago that we probably did our first deal, maybe 4 or 5 years ago we did our first deal, and we were sitting there going, why is no one here buying these properties? Like they were stupidly good value. Sam was flying down, looking at these properties, buying them up in bulk, and I'm pretty sure he'd have some pretty happy clients now. If you look at the performance of them over the last 4 years, we'll talk a little bit more about the stats and a few things later, but certainly Sam knows his stuff, and I think that's why we resonate. You know, we both have a passion for property, and we both see opportunities where there's any opportunity to make money. Sam and I are both on the same page.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that as well. Like, even, I mean, when I first started buying in Geelong, because I remember telling you, like, I told you I'm stopping buying in Perth and Brisbane because they've just gone up too much, and I'm looking for value again. And sure enough, I come down to Geelong, and I remember us going through just East Geelong, even parts of when Corio was cheap, and even other parts of, Newcombe, Thompson, Breakwater, all the, general, I'd say, suburbs at different price points, and for me at the time was absolutely astonishing the prices that they were, and we'll get into obviously the detail later, but sure enough, a lot of them are up 30-40% in times where a lot of people are saying Victoria is doing nothing, and I'm like, well, it's not the case for everywhere, is it? If you find good value, so I mean, yeah, no, it's been good, definitely. So. Look, obviously, you're a Geelong local. You come from there pretty much most of your life, and I mean, do you want to give everyone just a bit of an overview of what's going on in the market today in terms of Geelong, and perhaps anything that's happened since budget night? Because obviously there's quite a few changes, and I guess it's always, the biggest question for a lot of people. Like, when any time a budget's announced or there's anything to do with government, there's always people saying, "Oh, what happens here? What happens there?" So, do you want to take the floor and give everyone an idea of what's going on sort of today in the market?
Yeah, yeah. So look, we're probably it's been a bit of an interesting sort of 5 years, you would say, in the market in Geelong. We've had like boom and bust little sort of cycles in a 5 year period, which is a bit sort of not normal. I
Mm.
think COVID was not a normal period. We had massive uplift in sort of 2021, sort of end of 2022, and then sort of bottomed out a little bit again between 2022, 23, and then started to pick back up again again in 2024. But the last 12 months in Geelong, we've probably seen somewhere between 10 to some places 30% uplift in the last 12 months. And that was red hot. The market was pretty hot. A lot of investors getting in up until probably budget night. And then all of a sudden the brakes, well, to be honest, the brakes probably started coming on a little bit earlier in the year when the interest rates started going up as well. So we've probably seen it starting to slow a little bit all year. Probably from like February, it started to slow down, and then definitely budget night with all the changes and reforms. We've probably seen things slow down even further. And then we had a little rush probably 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, yeah,
the
mate.
last month
I
maybe.
know the rush you're talking about.
The last month with the changes in self-managed super fund, we've had heaps of investors. Like I did a deal on Sunday 2 weeks ago, just closing out deals on for self-managed super funds, like literally working Sundays, which most agents don't do. But obviously, I'll do whatever it takes to do a deal. But yeah, working feverishly to get deals done to get to break the deadline on the 10th of August. So I think a lot of agents and buyer agents were really hectic in that period. And we've probably found the last week or so it's been a lot quieter. Um, but that's just probably a post SMSF
Lull. Yeah.
lull after it. I think, at the end of the day, like it's probably slowed down a little bit. And buyers, I think the media's got a lot to do with what's actually happening out there in the market as well. I think, the media, they're doomsday prepping a lot of the time and talking negative. But at the end of the day, the positive stuff that's happening is at the end of the day, real estate's for what over 100 years has been the investment of choice for most Australians. And if you look at the stats, it always bounces back and is in positive. You buy good real estate and you hold on to it long enough, you make money. And I don't think that's changed. I just think they've just changed the way that some of the legislation. I think if you look at the average negative gearing, it might be $2,000 or $3,000 a year difference with the changes, which is in hindsight when you look at it on the bigger picture. Considering some properties, if you're buying a property for say 700,000, average growth is maybe at 4% a year. 2 or 3 thousand is nothing over a 10-year period when you look at the numbers. So, I think there's a lot of media. The media's got a lot to do with, impacting buyer confidence. And it's funny, the second we'll get an interest rate cut at some stage in the next 6 months,
Yeah.
the media will turn and be like, you know what, market's hot.
Yeah.
Everyone's on fire. The market's on fire. And you watch all these properties that are all been the same and they haven't moved. And they've all been sitting here, all these opportunities. So I think people who take action in the right time, and now is a really good time to be buying. It's obviously a buyer's market at the moment. It's always a really good time to be buying. You buy at the bottom of the market and then you sell at the peak of the market. So, yeah, who knows what 10 years, hopefully in 10 years' time, we'll sit here and look back at this, this podcast and we'll go, you know what? Hey, if you bought back then when we spoke about it, you've probably done pretty well.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about obviously the market, running up, going through almost, let's say, micro cycles in a major cycle as well. Like, I mean, we I'll happily say this, when we were talking in especially 23 and 24, we were hitting up like some good parts of Corio very hard. And I know we were purchasing in the mid 400s quite consistently then.
Mhm.
And I mean, most of that a couple of months ago is probably would be selling in the 600s. Maybe
Yep.
it's probably pulled back a little bit today, but that's probably after 25 to 30% growth in the case of 2 to 3 years or something like that, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, I guess the hard thing for people to do though is it's to go against what everyone in the media and all that is saying, right? Because everyone likes to follow everyone. And I mean, I know in early 25, there was a switch of almost about 2 months from the end of 24 to about February, March 2025, where you'd have almost no one at an open home, and then there'd be 30 people all of a sudden showing up most weekends.
100%.
And that's in the case of 2 to 3 months, literally.
Yeah, you're dead right. Yeah, I remember Corio was sort of languishing. Like we
Yes.
did a transaction, and it was dead. We could
Yeah.
hardly find a buyer for it. And then probably 2 months later, I did an open in Corio, and I couldn't, like, there was that many people, I couldn't actually record all the people's details.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking 40 people at an
Yeah.
open, groups, plus
Yeah.
partners and friends and dogs. And I mean, there was that many people. It was like Burke Street.
Yeah.
And you just went, goodness me, this is crazy. And we literally had 8 offers on the first day, like one open.
Yeah.
And then you're just picking through the best offers, trying to work through that. But yeah, it's quite strange. But like, the good thing is, like, if we look at the key metrics, I mean, let's just take away opinion. Let's look at the key metrics. Like, we've probably got vacancy rates still sitting between 1.25 to 2.5% in the Geelong region in different areas. But you think about that, that's super low. They're getting snapped up. We've had over an 11% increase in rental yield in the last 12 months as well. So rents are on the increase, vacancy rates are low. That just continually tells me that there's a shortage of property, and the demand's still really high, and there's still plenty of growth in the Geelong market. Like, Sam and I often talk about this. We talk about how Geelong is like the new Newcastle.
Yeah.
And it's probably 15 years behind what
Yeah.
Newcastle did. But I tell you what, you can't buy a house now under $1 million in Newcastle.
No. No.
Uh, so, in Geelong, you can still get yourself something in the sixes or even in the fives now today if you're really looking hard enough. In Corio and some of these areas, you can still buy under six. I've actually got one on the market now, so if you're interested, talk to Sam. But, so I mean, where in Australia can you buy something on a 500 square metre block, a brick home, under 600,000, only an hour from a major city? If you can find me another place, let me know.
Yeah, and the key thing I say to people is like, I mean, so a lot of people, will when they talk about, regions that are cheap, they'll say, oh, this area is cheap, that area is cheap, and they'll mention. I get this all the time on calls. People say, oh yeah, well, Dubbo is cheap or Bathurst is cheap. I'm like, yeah, there's no economy there. That's the reason it is cheap. Whereas Geelong, the reason it's most comparable city is Newcastle is because it's not a capital, but it's genuinely got its own economy. That's the thing that people don't understand. Like, there are a lot of people who I even know that live in Geelong who actually work in Geelong as well. A lot of people do. Like, sure, there's some who do the hybrid, 2 and 3 or 3 and 2 to Melbourne who might be an inner city professional. There are people who do that. But it's similar in the way to Newcastle, where people genuinely live there and work there and have a decent job in town. You don't really the Newcastle and Geelong are two, in my opinion, most unique cities in the sense that they're regional, but they have their own genuine diversified economy. That's the thing about them. So I mean, when you look at, it's funny you mentioned Newcastle too. When you look at Newcastle, 10, 15 years ago. So I pull a lot of people back to when I compare Geelong to Newcastle to about 2012, 2013. So it's about, 12, 13 years ago or so, right? And I'll tell them, look at the prices of a lot of the suburbs in that Newcastle region in that time. They were mostly anywhere from about 550 to about 850,000. That was a normal price in that time. And it's very similar to what a lot of suburbs in Geelong are today, extremely similar. Now, if you look at those Newcastle suburbs, they're all like $1 to $2.3 million, all of them. Every single one of them that, anyway, the ones, that I would buy and that are, your general inner city, already built suburbs, they're all that price point. And it's like, it's inevitably going to happen. It will inevitably get there with or without you. That's what I say to people because, I mean, you take it back another 10, 15 years ago, I guarantee you there'd be people in Geelong who were saying, I was buying Breakwater Newcombe Thompson for 230,000 or something like that, right? There'd probably be people buying Geelong West for 380 to 400,000 as well, right? And, you know, I don't know how many people that I've met who have bought in a good long-term area. Like there's parts and streets, for example, of East Geelong, Geelong West that have done like 9 and 10% growth over 30 years. Literally, there's some streets that have done it and some properties. There's some properties even in Corio that people don't know about that I've got data right back to like the early 90s till today that was selling for $3,000 and $4,000 in the early 90s and in the late 80s. And if you extrapolate that growth, that's like 7.5 to 8.5% growth for 30 to 40 years. So I mean, you're not doing too badly if you're getting that, especially with rental growth too.
100%. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm glad we're talking a little bit about Newcastle. I know we're talking about Geelong, but it does have its own a lot of similarities in
Yes.
some ways. Like Newcastle was very blue collar
Yes.
for a long time, and I think that's changing. I don't know too much about Newcastle, so I'll let you talk to that at some stage. But all I can say is Geelong traditionally has been blue collar. We used to have Fords and Pilkingtons, and a lot of those sort of businesses where it was a lot of working class. Geelong's changed probably, I would say, over the last 10 or 15 years, and the government has been putting a lot of, I suppose, employment into Geelong and white collar. So you've got, NDIS,
Yes.
you've got TAC, you've got WorkSafe here now. The ABS is here as well. You've also got Energy Australia's invested in call centre. I actually helped start that call centre as well. But you've just got so many different like white collar employment, even Centrelink, the ATO have an office down here. So there's a lot of public servants down here as well. So it's really brought a lot of high quality people from Melbourne who have moved to Geelong. But there's a lot of work. And you think about, I'll tell you a story, a really super fast story. There was a guy I know who worked in Melbourne through and through, and he'd never been to Geelong. There's actually a lot of Melbourne people who've never been to Geelong. They've never
Yeah,
crossed the West Gate.
yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And this particular guy, he goes, "Oh, it's summertime. I'm going to go for a drive with the wife." And he came down to Geelong for the first time, and he's like, "Wow, what's this?" So we're talking 2018.
Hmm.
He drove down here and he looked in East Geelong. East Geelong is an older inner suburb of Geelong, and it's got big blocks and some really nice old character homes. And he found this old cow bungalow that needed a little bit of love, but like had a semi reno on it. He had a house in Armidale in Melbourne, and that was worth 1.3 million at the time. He could buy this house in East Geelong for 480,000. He sold his house in Armidale He moved down here. He tipped 200,000 into it. COVID then happened, and he was still working in Melbourne at the time. COVID happened, and all of a sudden, worked from home. So now he lives and works from home, has a Melbourne job, high paying, and owns his house outright. Absolutely enjoys life. Goes on holidays 3 times a year. Spends lots of time with his family. It's the dream life. Takes his dog for a walk down the beach. And now that house is probably worth $1 million today in the market. So there's a lot of Melburnians who have actually moved from Melbourne to Geelong for the lifestyle and the affordability. So you don't have the busy traffic. You've still got work opportunities now. You've got the lifestyle. Like literally, I drove in here from Belmont, which is not far. It's where I live at the moment, into Geelong CBD. It literally took me 15 minutes, and that's in peak hour traffic.
Yeah.
So, there's no traffic. I mean, you think about Sydney. You're living in Sydney.
Man.
How long does it take you to commute?
Even Melbourne. Like I was recently down there, going from basically like kind of like Port Melbourne / the CBD over through the Monash Freeway and the tunnel and out to the eastern suburbs. I kid you not, it was gridlocked for like an hour and a half gridlocked. Like, and then you're late for a meeting and it looks bad on you, but you can't do anything about it because you're gridlocked in traffic. And that was from one car breaking down, literally one car breaking down. And that's just what happens. It's interesting, you mentioned that a lot of people haven't been to Geelong, because it's funny you say that, because I've even had a number of people that live in Melbourne who had never been to Geelong and were a bit skeptical about the region before. I've had clients from Cremorne, Greensborough, even Box Hill and Mont Albert and areas like that. So, I'd say upper middle class to the probably more wealthier areas of Melbourne. And some of them are gone there and like, is this for real? Like, are you serious? I had a client even from the North Shore of Sydney. Him and his wife flew down there because they didn't know what it was like, and they went to Packington Street and I'm like, this is like Bradley Heads Road in Mossman. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, it's like a top end place where people are walking their dogs in cafes and all that kind of thing. And people don't. The thing is, people don't know that. But I mean, once it's known, it's not going to be cheap anymore. I can tell you that right now. It won't be cheap once everyone knows about it. So yeah, and it's
100%. So I
yeah.
think, back to sort of what we were saying before about post the budget. So obviously things have slowed down a little bit, but there's still, like, as far as I'm concerned, and I think Sam agrees with me, Geelong is just such an underrated location. It's got lifestyle opportunities, it's got employment opportunities, it's got, all it probably needs is some more sun, and it would be probably one of the best places on the planet. But, the winters here are terribly cold.
Yeah.
But the summers are nice, the springs are nice, the vibe, that lifestyle, you think about this as well, like some of the best beaches in the region. So Torquay, Jan Jark are one of my favourite places to go. Now, I'm sitting here in Geelong CBD right now. I can, in a 25-minute drive, I'm at Torquay Beach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy stuff. I could go down there and have lunch today.
Yeah.
No problems. And in a spring day, you've got the sun on your back, in beautiful beach. I mean, it's just having that luxury of having that so close to where you live. Plus, you've got employment that pays well. I mean, not a lot of traffic. The people are, and it's traditionally a working class town, and we'll talk a little bit about the history of Geelong later on. But it's traditionally a working class town, but it's starting to really evolve. It's got like a real hybrid now. We talk about hybrid and the working opportunities that Australia now have, working from home and things like that. But Geelong's almost become a weird hybrid location. You've got sort of professionals from Melbourne. You've got a lot of investors from all around the country who are investing in here as well. Then you've got your traditional locals who have been here for generations. You've got immigrants that have come here over the years. And it's just got this real eclectic vibe about it now. But it's still really chill and relaxed compared to a lot of other places in Australia. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, what I told people is if they've never been there and they want to see the employment coming, just walk down the bottom end of Packington Street and look towards the city. You can literally see the WorkSafe building from down there. You can see it from the middle of the street, and you can see it from the station as well. You can literally see it from Geelong Station too. So I actually know people as well who live down in Geelong and they work for literally the Transport Office for Victoria, the Victorian government too. There's a lot of jobs down there that people wouldn't even know people were working in that literally live in Geelong too. So it's got, as I said to you, it's got all of those elements that are very similar to Newcastle about 10 to 15 years ago. It's almost all the similar elements. Like, I mean, um, I even had some clients when I was buying there, which was generally between about 2019 or about probably 2022. And I had clients even who hadn't been in Newcastle in 10 years or so, and they could not believe all the development that was going on in the CBD, all the high rises going up, the older buildings being redeveloped, and all that kind of thing. And a lot of them said it was like Sydney, Surrey Hills in the early 2000s. Like, that is probably accurate. And I mean, that's what's going to go on in Geelong in the coming years for sure. Like, there's so much plans of all that thing. So what I think we'll get into is we'll get into some of the coming changes and maybe the history of the region. So I know you're going into, obviously, just before, a bit of the history. It's got a bit of a blue collar history. So do you want to touch on that a little bit more? And we'll speak about some of the coming changes of the region because it's quite a bit, obviously, that's going on.
Yeah. So look, I'll probably talk a little bit about Geelong's actually got an airport, so Avalon Airport, which a lot of people don't know that we've actually. So Lynn Fox probably invested, and really spent a lot of money getting Avalon Airport up and running, and it's probably at really low capacity at the moment. It's only really Jetstar, and I think there might be one other international, I think Asia or something that goes out of there. I mean, it's probably 30 years ahead of its time. But in 30 years' time, when Geelong, like, we'll talk about the growth in a moment, but you think about in 30 years' time when Geelong's probably at around the 600,000 population mark, that airport's going to be buzzing.
Yes.
It's going to be nuts. So it's fantastic to have it right on our doorstep and not have to go into Melbourne to fly out somewhere. And that's, again, Newcastle. It's like such,
Yeah.
we've same with Newcastle, like Geelong Footy Club. One of the oldest, we're the second oldest club in the AFL VFL, and it's still one of the main. We would say even economic hubs plus social hub. When the Geelong footy's on in Geelong, it's one of the only AFL clubs that still has its own stadium and its own team, which is just fantastic for the region. When Geelong win, the economy just goes nuts. People go buy pizzas and they go out on town, and it's just a really good vibe across the location. But and you've got people like myself, like my dad, like I'm fifth generation Australian, and my great grandfather was a Geelong supporter, so it comes through the line, and now
Yeah.
my son goes to the footy, so it's got those little things about it. But yeah, Geelong's got an interesting history. Like it's we talk about when immigration really started in probably the 50s, and we started to get the £10 poms and the Italians and all those Europeans coming into Australia, and Ford's been here for quite some time, from the 50s or 60s onwards, and there was actually a lot of the immigrants used to work at Ford's, so they'd come over from, say, England or Italy, Greece, Croatia. They'd bring their whole family over, obviously war torn Europe, and just a fresh opportunity. So they'd come out here to Australia, and a lot of them came to Geelong. And Nor Lane and Corio was sort of built, even Bell Park and Belpost Hill was really built around immigrants at the time. So we talk about Corio. We spoke a little bit about Corio before. So there's a lot of commission homes, and a lot of those old commission homes are brick.
Yes.
Like they're like bunkers. You can't move them. We did a building pest, I think it was 8 mil out the floor on a 50-year-old house. But there was a lot of so it was low socioeconomic traditionally in there, and a lot of working class people working sort of Fords or just really low income. But then you started getting like Belpost Hill, and it's funny how popular it is now. These old Italians and Greeks that used to build, and Croatians, they'd build these beautiful brick homes, which traditionally at the time they were all weatherboards in Geelong, in the different suburbs, weatherboards and period homes, and then they started building concrete and brick homes. So it's these beautifully solid brick homes through Bellpost Hill and building their little communities through there. Now, what we're starting to see is that bit of gentrification through over the time, and those old sort of generations are starting to pass away, and the new gen is starting to come through there, and it's fantastic to see that rejuvenation through those areas. But funny, and I was telling actually Sam about this story. A lot of the immigrants that used to come here would work, and they would work their butt off. They'd work like double shifts at Fords and stuff, and then they'd buy land, often in North Lane, which is close by to where the office was, to where the factory was. And then they didn't have a house to live in, so Ford used to actually bring over on a ship parts for the cars, and they were almost like a shipping container, and they'd often sell them very cheap to the workers, and the workers would actually put it on their land while they were saving up to build their house. So they'd live in like a shipping container with their family, on their land, and really working hard, like really hard working people. And I've met quite a lot of them over the years, that old gen talking about that. And there's not many around now, but every now and then you see an old house in North Lane that's got like the old shipping container at the back where they lived in it. And then they built their, 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom weatherboard home. And then that was home for the next 40 years for their family. So it's got that fantastic history about that. And I love that, the fact that people have worked hard and come here and, again, used housing, and they probably built their house for maybe 5,000, 4,000, or £2,000 back in the day.
Yeah.
And now, they're selling in the sixes, some of them in some areas. So, but yeah, that's been a really crazy history. There's probably some other interesting stats about Geelong. It actually has a fault line that goes through it, a Titanic fault line.
Yes.
Yeah, so through Belmont, there's actually a street called Francis Street, and it's actually on the tectonic plate, and it does move. And the soil around there is very average.
Yes. Yeah.
It is very average.
Yeah.
There's often a lot of movement and needs a bit of underpinning in some of those properties, but they're still fairly structurally sound. It's just the soil just moves, which we can't do much about. But
No.
Grovedale's also quite bad in that space, and even sort of that south side of around that sort of those tectonic plates there, it does the soil's a bit, how you going? But they're some of the better suburbs in Geelong. So as long as you're sort of getting a structurally sound property in those areas, it's still pretty good. But you just got to be a bit mindful through there.
Yeah, and I guess I mean you touched on just there a bit of the history. I mean about obviously Corio, but the thing I think a lot of people don't realise is like if just to mention a few suburbs. So Corio is one, Breakwater and Thompson are another that previously did have quite a bit of public housing there, particularly the brick homes were public housing. They're as solid as a rock. I mean, you could have a hurricane that run through them and they'd still be standing. And a lot of that's been sold off now. And I don't think a lot of people know that almost all of that has been sold off. So do you want to talk to just a bit of the, sell-offs that have gone on in the past? Because, I mean, the issue with what a lot of people do is they go and buy these data packs and that, and they're not accurate to what's actually going on today in streets because the government data isn't updated to what it should say because the government doesn't often share all the data because they don't want people to know what's actually going on.
And I find real estate data to be 3, 6, 12 months behind.
Yes.
So what's the good thing being an agent, we can see exactly what's happening at the moment. So the reality is the open numbers at the moment are really low. The data, if you look at the data, it goes, Geelong's up by 20%, 15, 20% in the last 12 months. So everyone's like, oh, wow, Geelong's on fire. It's sort of slowed down at the moment, but they're still fantastic. I mean, if we're talking opportunities for areas, so we just talked about Cryo and Lane, Bellpost Hill. That's the north side. But there's actually, and I actually alerted Sam to this. He didn't even know that Breakwater existed as a suburb until we had a chat. But Breakwater is this tiny little area, and there's a little pocket through there that has, old sort of social housing, very similar to the Corio area. But the interesting difference is your walking distance to South Geelong Station, which has just been done up and had a um, massive amount of infrastructure in there, duplicating the line, making it a lot bigger. Um, so, for people commuting to Melbourne and whatnot, you literally only, I would say, you're an 8-minute drive from Geelong CBD. Whereas, okay, Cryo's got its advantages. It's a bit closer to Melbourne, but it's not as close to the Geelong CBD, and it's probably breakwater. You got big blocks, 500-600 square metre blocks, rock solid houses. You've also got Thompson, which is neighbouring that. There's certain pockets, obviously, in all these areas, but again, brick homes, good sized blocks. Again, similar distance to Geelong CBD and South Geelong Station. Plus, you've got the Bellarine not far away. You're on that sort of eastern side of Geelong. Then you've got Newcombe, which again is very similar to those two suburbs. Big blocks, a lot of old commission homes, again, been sold off over time. They're now, a lot of first home buyers have bought in. Investors have bought them over the last 5-6 years, which has been good investments for them. And another hidden area that I'd like to probably share with you is St Albans Park. Now, this is actually probably even better, I think, in some ways. Predominantly 80s, 90s built. So they're not really, it's not an old suburb. It's actually, a lot of them are sort of 80s, 90s and brick, 500 square metre blocks. Again, you're probably maybe another 5 minutes out from that. So we're talking, 12 minutes into Geelong CBD. It's not that far. But really good opportunities. My brother actually lives in that estate there, and he's got a really nice house there. So, these suburbs here, and we're talking in the sixes, maybe even high fives, depending on where you're looking at the time. But as we sit at the moment, we're talking solid brick homes. The St Albans Park estate was actually built by Philippi Homes, which is a traditional local Geelong builder. Very good builder. A lot of those homes are rock solid, fantastically built. Same with certain pockets in Corio. They've got the newer pocket there, which is 90s built, 80s, 90s built. Similar sort of standard. So a lot of opportunity in those old sort of working class areas you would class them as, but they really have changed. I'd probably, look, there's a couple of streets in Whittington, but I wouldn't probably recommend all areas of Whittington. Certainly
The
speak to
right side
Sam.
of Wilson's Road, yeah.
Speak to myself or Sam if you're interested in that area.
Yeah.
But like if you're looking in that suburb, but there's certain pockets you probably still don't want to go in that area. But look, the suburbs I've just mentioned, and there's probably the same with Thompson. So Thompson, Breakwater, Newcombe. I still think there's opportunity in Corio in some spots. And St Albans Park, I think, are your real rock bottom investment, good, solid brick and mortar, good block size, plenty of growth potential. And then you've probably got your Grovedale, Belmont. They're your traditional sort of south side where if you've got a little bit more budget, you're probably getting into a slightly better area. Again, brick homes. You can get some good period homes in Belmont too in certain pockets, but then you start to talk, depending on your budget, but we can be talking in the millions in certain pockets in there. So, and we'll talk about other areas and other things shortly as we progress through there. But I just wanted to quickly touch on, did you have anything else you want to touch on that
Yeah,
space?
just to go in before we move on a little bit, probably just to go on in terms of the population with Geelong, because I know you mentioned in 30 years' time, probably 600,000 or so, but I mean, there's all these, all this government data out there. There's all these predicted population things out there predicting around 500,000 people by the year 2040. So that's only about 14 or 15 years away. So just to give everyone listening an idea, there's only 324,000 people in Geelong at the moment. So that's effectively increasing the population by nearly 50% over the course of like 14 or 15 years. So just talk to what's going on there and just what's happening with the land supply, I guess so in future years, because there's obviously a lot that needs to happen between now and then to fit that many people in Geelong, right?
So I've literally just pulled up I already know a little bit about this already, but so we haven't even talked about, Armstrong Creek growth corridor. That's probably maturing at the moment. That's been a massive 16-year development, where we've seen three brand new suburbs effectively just jump out of nowhere. Charlemont, Mountain Ede's been around a little while, but there was no real housing; it was mainly farming. Armstrong Creek wasn't even a suburb,
Yeah.
20 years ago. So these particular pockets have grown significantly, and they're only within 10-minute drive to Torquay, which is actually crazy stuff. There's a lot of houses in there. There's probably, I would say, probably 12,000 dwellings at the moment and growing. There's still development happening, more estates still coming in those areas. Population growth has grown massively, but that was the fastest growing corridor in Australia for a 10-year period. So there was nowhere else in Australia that was growing faster than the Armstrong Creek growth corridor. And the interesting thing is we've now got the Fines for Lovely Banks growth corridor, which is a bit further over, bit closer towards the north side of Geelong, north and sort of west side of Geelong, and there's over 5,500 hectares that has not been developed. It's all farmland as we speak, but it has been all approved by the council. And they're estimating 110,000 new residents in that pocket alone. So just think about that for a second.
Yeah, and that's
So
on 324,000 people. That's a lot.
and then that's natural growth that Geelong's been getting. The population growth has been crazy. So a lot of people don't know that Geelong's actually bigger than Hobart.
Yes.
Our population is bigger than Hobart. So and growing. We're continuing to grow where people are sort of moving out of Hobart. But so you think about that, like that's over the next probably 10, 15 years. So that's the new sort of Armstrong Creek growth corridor. That's going to be a really popular area, I think, as well, because we've got the Geelong Ring Road, which gives you really quick access to Melbourne. So you just literally jump on the ring road, bang, off you go. And I mentioned the airport before. That will be about a 10-minute drive to the airport,
Yeah.
the Avalon Airport. So massive growth corridor through there. So you think about, obviously they see this region as a really large growth area. People continue to come here. And that's, some of that development will probably start in the next 1 to 2 years. So we're very close from that starting to take off. And as we've seen with the south side of Armstrong Creek development, and that's continuing to grow. And I think that will eventually continue to go right the way through to Torquay. So, I mean, I haven't seen the planning on that, but at some stage, I think that will continue to expand as well. So it's going to be a pretty massive area, the Greater Geelong area.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how much the population has actually grown over the years. So, I know for a fact that between the years of 2014 and 2024, Geelong actually had the percentage-wise the highest growth of any city in the country, of any of them. So, everyone hears about, the great Australian migration of people from the southern states, particularly Melbourne, Sydney, and surrounding areas to Queensland, that's been going on for years. But even throughout those years, which was the COVID period, which supposedly everyone was leaving Victoria, Geelong still had higher growth than the Gold Coast, Brisbane, and Sunshine Coast on a percentage basis, which is crazy if you think about it. Like, not many people would probably know that. And I think, people, the thing is, at the end of the day, if you look at it objectively, it's extremely underpriced for what's going on there and how, like, if you're sitting on a suburb, for example, that already is built and has everything around it, somewhere, especially like Geelong West or a suburb that's in inner Geelong, right, that has all the facilities, is close to CB and everything like that. Imagine how in demand it's going to be when the population's 500,000. Like, they are all already owned, and they already have all the facilities there for what you need to do in your life. You're closer to all the jobs, and naturally speaking, when the population increases and the government continues to invest money in the region as well, I mean, you're going to get more jobs in the inner city as well too. They'll definitely be there.
100%. So you look at population, so we're talking about Geelong, around, let's just say 500,000, right, as a minimum, what it's going to look like in the next sort of 15 odd years. To give you some context, 1996, so 30 years ago, Geelong had 125,000 people.
Yeah, wow.
So you think about that, like it's literally three times,
Yeah.
four times, grown,
4Xing, yeah.
in a 30-year period. So that's a fairly big jump, and hence why these growth corridors need to be there, because they need to house the people that are coming in. And it's got that internal pressure around pricing that, people need houses, and they, especially in the premium suburbs, hence why the premium suburbs continue to do really well in Geelong, because people want to live there, and there's not really many good, really, really, they're really tightly held in those really popular suburbs. So it's putting a lot of pressure on pricing, and then housing availability. People need to live somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. It's massive growth. It's look, I can't. I remember looking for. I built my first home in Grovedale, which is one of the areas, in 2010, and I built that for 248,000. Just to give you some context, it's probably a $700,000 property now.
Easily. Yeah, it would be.
So, a 3 bed, 1 bath, small little house, 248 was the build cost. That's with the land as well. So, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
lots
absolutely.
of lots of growth, lots of growth. More people
Absolutely.
equal more demand for housing. So it's only going to keep, supply and demand will keep things in, moving in the positive direction for us.
Absolutely. So, look, we've spoken about obviously one of the interesting things is the fault line, obviously running through some parts of Geelong, the tectonic plates. But I know there's a few other interesting things, obviously, in Geelong that we'll probably get into here. Do you want to talk about one thing I want to mention in this episode is sewer lines, where they generally run along the properties in Geelong, because a lot of people who buy from outside of Geelong don't understand where they run, and they get confused when they see like a map of where they run and all that kind of thing. And I've even seen the case where they might have a conveyancer who might be from another state, for example, and it operates differently in a different state, and they don't know, their conveyancer doesn't even know how to read the diagram. So you want to just talk on to how like just sewer lines and services often run through properties for a little bit, because it's something that I think is interesting and a lot of people don't actually know, especially who aren't from the region.
Well, I suppose I'm learning things too as we speak. I
Yeah.
thought that was normal,
No.
to have your easements at the back of properties. Obviously, being a Geelong local, that's what I'm used to seeing. So yeah, pretty much you'd almost find every single property, or almost every property in Geelong, has an easement on it, pretty much. Usually at the back, usually about 3 meters off the back fence. And what they do is they have like usually the water and the sewer sort of lines, go through the back of each property.
Yeah.
Um, you can't build on it generally, but most people don't build right back to their back fence. Usually, just the only place that we usually get the issues is if you've got a garage that's maybe built over an illegal structure. Council won't let you build over it. But majority of them, it's a back garden bed. You don't even know about it. Yeah, effectively, they don't even really need access to it, as if it clogs up over time. And I think some of the older suburbs, they use the old clay pipes, so
Yeah.
sometimes they start needing servicing, like everything. They just need a bit of work doing to them. So sometimes they need access, but that's very rare. I mean, the properties that we're probably talking about in most areas, like your Breakwater, Cryo, Grovedale, sort of all those areas, they use the newer piping. Yeah, it's just a standard thing that's in Geelong, that they just do that. And even in the newer suburbs like Armstrong Creek and out through there, pretty much every property has got all the services at the back of the property.
Yeah.
So it's actually not a bad thing. Like, I
No.
think my dad's got an old house in Belmont, and I think we've had one issue, and he's been there for 30 years. He's had one issue where a pipe blew, and bar water came out, fixed it, bang, off that went.
Yeah, and I think another thing that people don't realize as well is that, you can't generally build on the back of your property anyway because the rear you got the rear setback anyway. So
Correct.
I've seen even conveyances before, especially one from the region who freaked out about it. And I said to him, just go on the like local council's development control plan or something like that, and look at the rear setback. You literally cannot build on where they are anyway. And it's done. The council and the actual original developers purposely done that, so you can't build on it anyway. So nothing's on there, so they can access it. It's done for a reason generally, but I mean, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that point because I think a lot of people tend to look at it in the wrong way, and it's literally you have to have a sewer pipe in your house anyway. How do you think it's going to get in and out of there?
It's literally just the services. I
Yeah,
wouldn't. I don't even worry about it at
no,
all as an
no,
agent. It has no impact on the sale or the price,
no.
as in the impact on the property at all. Um, yeah, when if anyone mentions a line, like a service line at the back, it's like, well, that's just normal.
Yes,
This is what we
yeah,
do. It's just, as you said, like everyone needs a sewer line, everyone needs water connection. It's not a bad thing. Just a standard part of, I suppose, buying a house in Geelong. It only really has an impact if it's in a really weird spot, which is
yeah,
very rare. Most
yeah.
of them are at the back of the property. You wouldn't even know it's there, to be honest. If you're living in it or if you're renting it out, say you're an investor and you don't even see the property, it would have no impact on you at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, another
Mm.
thing I probably want to touch on here that probably a lot of people would need to know is that obviously we talk about brick and tile homes in certain areas of Geelong being quite popular, but obviously being there quite a bit, you obviously being there all the time. Period homes are quite common in some of the more upmarket areas. So I know Geelong West, particularly near Packington Street, some parts of East Geelong, the Golden Triangle of East Geelong, particularly. People like period homes quite a lot in that area. It's the kind of popular the thing that everyone wants in that region. You want to just talk to that a little bit because, I mean, I think what hopefully listeners gather from this is different regions of Geelong people want different things. So there's different sort of dwellings that are in demand in different areas. So do you want to talk to just a bit of the period homes in those sort of inner, more upmarket suburbs?
Absolutely. I love period homes. They're Edwardians, Cal Bungalow in
Yeah,
Geelong West. Oh, yeah, there's plenty. So that's the old Geelong. We're talking 100 years plus. Um, it's fantastic that a lot of them are still going. And I actually grew up in Geelong West myself in a Californian bungalow that my dad renovated and still have very fond memories of it. It's just really high ceilings, ornate cornices. It's just got that really nice character about it. And the good thing with the character homes is they're in fairly affluent suburbs of Geelong. So I'll rattle a couple of them off. My personal favourite is actually South Geelong.
mm,
I love South Geelong. It's really close to everything. It's got the train line there. It's a really small suburb, doesn't, and it's very tightly held. I'm a mad Geelong supporter, so I watch the footy. The football Geelong football ground's actually in South Geelong, so I love the idea of being able to walk to the ground and then come home. To me, that's fantastic. But they have fantastic character homes in there and rear access lanes. So that's how far back we're sort of going. You've got the old lanes where you can have your garage at the back um, and these real fantastic Edwardians. But yeah, you've got that really. So you've probably got East Geelong, Geelong CBD itself. Um, you've got Newtown, Geelong West. You've even got Manifold Heights.
yeah,
Um, Probably not so much Herne Hill, but Manifold Heights have sometimes got some really nice properties and some big blocks. So, but then you're more premium suburbs of Geelong. So you've also got Highton. So it's called Highton because it's on a high, it's on a hill, and there's certain pockets there where you've got view over Geelong, and it's absolutely, and they're not period homes, but the views over Geelong are just unbelievable. If they were in, you think about what view in Vaucluse would be worth overlooking Sydney Harbour. Now, I know it's Sydney and looking over Sydney Harbour, but that would be worth an absolute fortune. I don't even
yeah,
know price, maybe $20 million for something like that. You could probably buy something in Geelong for maybe 1.5 million with a view, a fantastic sprawling view over Geelong at the top of the hill of Highton. It's just unbelievable value. You think about that, $1.5 million to look at a fantastic water view. But then you've got Rippleside and Drumcondra. We've also got period homes, a lot smaller, close to the beach. And then you've got the Esplanade in Geelong, which is just probably one of the best views. There's some of those houses are probably worth 6-7 million
Yeah.
because they really are fantastically beautiful homes that are right on the water. But just varying properties. But the good thing is you can still probably pick up some of these period homes that maybe need a little love, but under $1 million. We're talking 800, 900,000, maybe 700, depending on where you're looking. I know there was one in South Geelong, a real original two-bedder that just sold for 700,000 on a 400 square metre block. Literally walking distance to South Geelong Station. You probably need to tip a few $100,000 into it to get it back to its old glory. But I mean, some of those houses, though, to give you some context, they can sell for well over $2 million if you do a really good renovation on them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that people don't realize as well is a lot of those period homes are built very well as well. Like I've had homes that are 85 years old getting a building and pest report done on them. No major defects, floors only out 12 mil, and the home's 85 years old. Now, I mean, you would struggle to build a home only 12 mil out today, even with a very good builder, because that is ridiculous. That is a very, very well built home, especially for 85 years old. So the other thing too, I guess, with that for people is that, I mean, if it's only 12 mil out after 85 years, it's gonna stand the test of time. You can almost guarantee it because it's lasted that long, and it's still holding its structure, despite all those years gone by. And I mean, I want to just touch also on, I mean, the sort of walkability of some of these inner suburbs, because you mentioned South Geelong. I know South Geelong's a good example. Geelong West, the right part of Geelong, or East Geelong too. I mean, South Geelong, you've got the stadium, you've got, obviously the station nearby. You've got all these little cafes, some little breweries all around there too, a few little restaurants as well. And I mean, it's one of those, it's so, the thing is, when I talk about Geelong and Newcastle, they're so similar in the sense that I can bring on comparable suburbs in each of the regions. So I'd say South Geelong would be something probably like Hamilton in Newcastle or somewhere like that. They're both suburbs that are very walkable, that they have all these little shops all around there. They're close to the stadium. You can get to the city very quickly. You want to just talk about like a little bit of the services in those inner suburbs, because I mean, that's an area where I genuinely think you probably wouldn't need a car if you wanted to do a city activity. You probably wouldn't even need one.
No, absolutely you don't. Well, for example, my kids go to South Geelong Primary, and I work in the CBD. I actually walked to pick them up. So I'm right in the heart of Geelong CBD. I walked to pick them up in 15 minutes.
Yep.
South Geelong. So median house price there, 830,000 at the moment. We talked about Breakwater before, which is literally the suburb over from it. That's at 600,000.
Yeah.
So just to give you some context as to how close that is
Yeah.
and where the value is. But anyway, yeah, look, you've got all the High Street shopping centre in South Geelong, which is like in Belmont, which is just over the river. It's literally you could walk there actually. You could walk there, a little bit of a walk, probably a quick drive.
Mm.
Within a 3-minute drive, 5-minute drive, you're in Belmont, where you've got Kmart, all the shops, cafes, everything. Then you've got Geelong CBD, which has got like everything that you need in there. Westfield, you've got everything there, walking distance. They do have buses, they have the train. So you can catch the train from South Geelong to Geelong as well, which is one stop, and you can get yourself in the heart of Geelong CBD really quickly if you're a bit older and not as mobile. I mean, that we've touched on South Geelong. Let's talk about Geelong West. I mean, Packington Street, probably the best street for eating, cafes, shopping. So close to Geelong, like we're literally walking distance to Geelong CBD as well. So, which is crazy stuff. You've got everything that you need right in Packington Street, and it's very, very sought after. The closer you are to Packington Street, the more they're worth. And I know there's properties in there that are $1.8 million
Yeah.
easily, and then you can probably pick something up, a bit further out, probably still for your 700 or 800,000, which would be probably a very short drive. We're talking 2-minute drive to Packington
Yeah.
Street. You've got Shannon Avenue as well. And the good thing with sort of Geelong West is that you're really close to the ring roads, really close access. So if you go to Melbourne or to the Surf Coast, you can just jump on the Geelong Ring Road and you're not far from there as well. Newtown is probably the most popular suburb in Geelong. The most affluent, definitely. Some beautiful period homes, and we're talking like almost estates. Some of them
Yes.
they're some 1,000 odd square meters or bigger. Um, Beautiful architecturally designed homes. A lot of the Geelong footballers, a lot of wealthy people in Geelong live there. So close to everything. Again, you're close to the south side of Pakenham Street. Close to literally everything. Your Geelong, yeah, it's actually got some of the best schools actually in that area as well. So you got Geelong College, you got Sacred Heart Girls' School, private school, just to name a couple that are very very close. Matthew Flinders is in Geelong CBD, but not far away. And you got St Joseph's Boys College as well, which is one of the better colleges in Geelong. So they're all actually in that Newtown region.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's Newtown's a really big suburb, but there's some fantastic. Even if you go further south, you're towards a river, so you can have a river view. It's got lots of opportunities. There's a it's mainly an old suburb, but it's starting to people start to build townhouses and some things in there now as the older houses start to fall apart a bit and they knock them down as long as they don't have a heritage overlay, which some of them do. But look, I call Newtown recession proof.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, particularly that pocket near St. Joseph's that you mentioned. I mean, a few people who haven't been to Geelong and haven't driven through the streets, they don't know what it's like. And I mean, there are a number of houses there that have tennis courts and are literally on an acre of land, like literally an acre of land in that region. And I mean, it's really for me, I'd consider it almost like your Chirac slash Kooyong kind of Geelong, really. Like
Yep,
especially that particular, the pocket. I mean, that
correct,
particular pocket I'm
correct.
talking about there. I mean, there's houses there that sell for $3 and $4 million quite regularly. Now, the only thing is they don't come to market very often, but if they do, it's multi-million dollars you're generally talking. So, I mean, a lot of people not from the region would know about that, but there are genuinely homes like that in that region. But look, we've spoken obviously about a few interesting things about the area. Now, what I probably want to get into here is just where the best opportunities we think lie in Geelong. Now, we've both got probably similar opinions on this, but in your view, where do you think some of the best opportunities are today for people wanting to buy in Geelong?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity. It depends on it's going to depend on what your strategy is, I think. Investors and being, about investing, property investing, it all comes down to budget. It comes down to what you want to do over it. You're going to hold it for 20 years. Um, what I find, look, I think depending on your budget, I think there's a lot of opportunity depending on which suburb you want to go into. If you've got budget of 900,000, you're not going to go wrong if you're buying in one of these premium suburbs that we just talked about. So we're talking, Highton. I also think blue chip Belmont. I call it blue chip Belmont. It's such a good performing suburb in Belmont. You just don't lose in there. It just continues. To give you some context, my dad bought his house in Belmont in 2000 for 94,500. It's probably worth, it's 20, what's that, 26 years ago. It's probably worth 750 now. And hasn't done a thing to it, needs a full reno. So,
Yeah, so
I
if
mean,
you
crazy
renovate it,
stuff.
it's 900,000 easy if you renovate
Probably
it.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think about that. That's blue chip Belmont. You got height, and you got if you want a period home, look, they're not going to go down in value.
No
Like
way.
Geelong West, um, that's how my dad made most of his money. He was selling in Geelong West. He doubled more than doubled. I think he almost tripled his growth in his house in Geelong West in a 6 year period. Tripled. He did the rounds himself, but I mean that's just. I mean we're going back a fair bit of time, but I still think that growth. Maybe not at that level, but I still think there's massive growth. They're always going to be in demand close to Pakenham Street. So anything central with a period home, I don't think you're going to lose. Newtown, East Geelong. I didn't even really talk about East Geelong that much, but that's also a highly desirable area. That did a 30% jump in 1 year. at one stage a few years back. So you've got Geelong CBD, you've got Newtown, Manifold Heights, any of these sort of areas, South Geelong, Belmont, Grovedale, even I think Marshall's underrated as well. So that's like your sort of premium stuff. If you're looking for a bit more traditional investing, which I think this is where Sam and I agree with, 500, 600 square metre block, brick solid home that's not going anywhere, close proximity to, all amenities. You're probably looking at, Breakwater, St Albans Park, Newcombe, parts of Thompson, parts of Whittington, Corio. They're probably your bottom end, entry level, sort of traditional 101 investor stock. And they've been highly popular over the last few years, and I still think there's opportunity there, massive opportunity. I mean, you're still picking those things up for some sub six if you know where you're looking at. If you're buying right now, you probably get something sub six in those areas, like high fives. And I mean, the growth in those, yeah, there's still massive growth to
Yeah,
be had
yeah.
there. Absolutely massive growth. If you're looking more set and forget, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Armstrong Creek in that growth corridor to the south. Now, a lot of people don't like those because they're a bit smaller blocks. But for investors, if you think about it, if you're interstate, you actually never see the property. You want something that's going to tick along, have a really good high yield. The yields are actually a lot higher in the newer suburbs because people will pay a bit more for a newer house. House is also newer, so you don't have to maintain it as much. And the other bonus is you're 10 minutes from Torquay. Torquay's median house price 1.1 million. In Armstrong Creek at 700,000. So there's going to be growth there once that suburb matures in maybe another 10 years. Armstrong Creek, Charlemont, Mount Denise, that sort of growth corridor there. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. That's only going to keep going up over time, and that they really are set and forget properties as well. So it just really depends. If you're looking for traditional investment, I think what Sam and I was sort of we're quite aligned in those areas. Newcombe, St Albans, Thompson, Breakwater, Corio,
Yeah,
probably
Geelong as
touching on
well.
Lane, but even Bellpost Hill, we've got the brick homes, they're probably maturing a little bit faster. Bellpost Hill now may have missed the boat there, but I think there's some really good opportunities for your bread and butter investing with your 500 lots and brick homes. And then if you've got a bit more budget and you're looking a bit more long term and want to have a really nice house, I think those period homes in the suburbs are really good. And then if you're in the middle and you're sort of just wanting something set and forget over a sort of a 10, 20 year period, I think the growth corridors are also a pretty good buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And where I want to kind of compare this to is now I talk obviously quite a bit about Newcastle and Geelong. Now, obviously, the interesting thing about both of them as well is they're both cities, and the cities basically by the waterfront, and you actually have high-rise buildings by the waterfront too. That's why they're so similar. Now, just to give everyone an idea about some of the suburbs that probably easiest ones is the inner city ones to mention, the particular ones I like. For anyone watching, if you want to think of East Geelong, South Geelong, Geelong West, Newtown, that's probably the equivalent of Merriweather, probably the Hill, or maybe the Junction in Newcastle. Those are 1.8 to $2.2 million each right now. If you want to look at Breakwater, Thompson, Newcombe, the right part of Whittington, the right part of St Albans Park, or even you could probably argue the right part of North Geelong or Herne Hill, that's probably equivalent to like Mayfield, Islington, Carrington, those sorts of suburbs, Hamilton East in Newcastle. They're all 1.05 to probably about 1.35 million at the moment. So, I mean, this is going to go there with or without you. That's all I have to say to people. And we know it's going to go there. They're going that way without a doubt. It's just the minute they will pick up and go on a long run, and there'll be people like us who who have gone to the market and got in there when they're fairly cheap. And the yields will keep up as well. Rents will grow with properties. Like there's not people want to live in these suburbs as well. I mean, can you just talk, Cookie, perhaps with just in terms of the tenant you get in a better suburb too? You generally that you'll get a longer term family or professional who wants to stay in the area for a long time, and that's really the tenants you want, I guess, in those suburbs, isn't it?
Yeah. So look, those people, like most people, want to live in a nice house, whether they are rent it or own it. Obviously, we want to own a nice house, but if you can't own it, and look, the Great Australian Dream, whether we like it or not, is becoming harder. It's becoming, the gap is widening. And I did mention, Geelong's was built on blue collar. There still is a number of blue collar in Geelong that can't afford houses. That's the reality. They're going to be renting forever. So a lot of people like to have a nice house that they rent. A lot of these inner suburbs, they love to live in that with that lifestyle. Walk their dog down Pakenham Street, go have brunch with their wife or their husband, and just enjoy, catch up with their friends, and they stumble home after a night on Friday night from some of the nightlife. And then you wake up in your beautiful period home and the fire on in winter. People love that. And you're getting a lot of professionals that work in Melbourne or work that hybrid role. In those inner suburbs, you've also got a lot of professionals. There are a lot of wealthy people in Geelong too. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of wealthy people. So you've got a lot of business people who've been around a long time. You've got doctors, lawyers, people that work at the hospital not far away. People who've got businesses in Geelong CBD. They want to be living in those premium areas. Some of them have got really smart investors. They've bought a lot of properties around the Geelong area, but it doesn't mean that they want to live there. They might have bought, some properties, but they don't want to live in those suburbs themselves. So then they rent in a really premium suburb. So you've got that type of person. Then you've got your mum and dad, your traditional mum and dad, your working class or your middle class. There's probably a lot of middle class in Geelong. People who've got one or two kids. They might be saving up for a house themselves and getting into the market themselves. They need a house to live in. They need a four-bedder. They need a three-bedder. They need a work from home space. They need a garage for their cars. So that's why there is a massive shortage. Hence the vacancy rates being so low. There's just a massive shortage of housing, and that the positive thing for that is, as a landlord, you get to pick and choose which tenant you put in.
That's right.
That's the positive. When vacancy rates are really high, you're pretty much like, give me anyone. I need some rent. Whereas now, you're probably getting 10 or 15 people applying for these really premium properties. And then you go, right, you know what? I'm going to pick the doctor that's got his wife that's also a lawyer. Yeah, I'll pick them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the funny thing is that a lot of people don't know is like there are quite a few wealthy people that do live in Geelong, and quite a few people have been long-term residents as well, and particularly in the good long-term suburbs that have been there for 30 plus years. A lot of people actually own their homes entirely outright. You'd be
Yep.
very surprised about how many people have no mortgage against their homes, despite them being worth 800,000 plus. There's plenty of people even in Thompson, Newcombe, Breakwater, and those suburbs that also own their homes outright. There's heaps of them that own their homes outright because
Money.
plenty of them have even bought it 10, 15 years ago for a number with a two in front of it, literally a number with a two in front of it, and have paid their old mortgage off in that time. And, one thing I just want to probably get onto as well before we sort of close out the video too is just the very top end of Geelong. So I'm talking particularly your Drumcondra, Ripple side, your really expensive parts of East Geelong, your very small pocket by sort of the Esplanade in Geelong, just by the CBD and, the pier there. A lot of people, the thing is, those sorts of areas there, they're mostly detached homes on reasonably decent lots. Most of the homes are fairly good nick, and they're quite tightly held as well. And I mean, some parts of the Esplanade, and especially Drumcondra and Rippleside, there's not a single sale that happens for 2 or 3 years at times. Sometimes not a single one will sell, and often if it's a sale, it's often because it's a deceased estate or it's because they've owned it for 65 years in a family or something like that. Um, do you want to just talk about when if a market shifts in those very top end suburbs, what actually happens there? Because that is like the equivalent of basically like a Vaucluse of Sydney or somewhere like that, or even like the Golden Mile of Brighton kind of in Geelong. Just for some, because I do have some views at times who look at Geelong and say where would be the very most premium pocket where you'd have a detached home in a very good seaside suburb. That's probably what we're talking about. So do you want to just give viewers just a bit of an idea about some of those suburbs, what sort of goes on with them?
Yeah, definitely. So there's pockets of Geelong and the Esplanade. You talked about the Esplanade. The Esplanade's literally right on the waterfront of Geelong. Um, we're talking, $5.5, $6 million properties. Some of them they vary between probably 2 mil, depending on the apartment, whether it's an apartment or a house. But um, they rarely come on the market, and if
Yeah.
they do actually sell, it's randomly sold off market often. So they might be in touch with an agent, and sometimes agents have got people lined up already. They'll go, "You tell me if anything comes on the Esplanade. You tell me straight away, and we'll buy it off market. We'll just pay whatever they want, pretty much." Which is a crazy position to be in. But you got to remember as well, like, and we're probably talking to some really savvy people right now on your podcast, and I love talking to those type of people because they're quite intelligent when it comes to investing and using their money. But the traditional stance was buy and hold and never sell. In these suburbs of Geelong, like Newtown, there's some really good pockets of Newtown where just people just never sell.
Mm.
They literally buy the house, so they might be in their early 20s. They buy with their wife, they renovate, and they live in it. And you ask them, would you ever move? Would you ever sell? No, why would I sell? I'm in the best street in Geelong. Like they literally live there for the
Yeah.
rest of their life.
Yeah.
They never move. And then they pass away, and then the son comes along and goes, I'm in. I'll sell my house over here. And they move straight
Yeah.
into mum and dad's house. And it never changes hands. Like I did see one actually last year. It was on the market for the first time in 120 years. And that
Yeah,
was
so
in
that's
Ripple.
probably since it was subdivided as a lot. That's probably since it was
Correct.
subdivided.
So that was in Rippleside. Now,
Yeah,
I didn't sell it, but yeah, that was on the market for the first time in 120 years. So it was
yeah,
in the family all that time. So we find these really premium spots in Geelong that they just are so tightly held.
yeah,
They are so tightly held, and I think the opportunity for people in these suburbs is if you get into a good pocket of Geelong. So, like as I say, that those inner suburbs, Geelong, Geelong West, East Geelong, people just don't turn over that much. Um, and so, if you do get a good investment in there, good period home in there, in a good street, and you hold on to it, you're just not going to lose.
no,
You're just not, because they're so tightly held. And if people want to get in there, sometimes they're going to wait 3 or 4 years to get in there. So you think about the supply and the demand, they just don't have premium streets growing out. You've got to wait for that opportunity. And when the opportunity comes, then you've got to be ready to open your wallet and pay
yeah.
for it.
And I guess it's interesting you say about these, deals being done, with buyers lining up. I've heard of, been involved in, and know of deals that happen quite often in that way. I'll give you two examples actually very similar to that. So I know someone in Kew who owns an acre worth of land that's been in the family since 1881. So that's the very first subdivision, and it has never sold, never changed hands. The same family since 1881. I know of another family in Sydney in Mossman, and it's a lot that's over 4,000 meters squared. So generally, a lot of the Mossman lots in Sydney, and it's the same even in Kew and Melbourne in the larger lots. They're often subdivided into maybe 3 or 4 lots now. So in Mossman, you got the top one, the view lot, street level. You got the middle lot, which still has a view. Then you got the waterfront lot. This family owns all three of them basically together down to the water. Been in their family since I think 1876 or something like that. It's something ridiculous, and it's pretty much since it was basically trees and land. That's effectively since they how long they've owned it. So, I mean, you got to remember when you got wealthy people wanting to buy on somewhere like the Esplanade or the very best street of Geelong West or the very best part of Newtown, and you've got you might have five or six buyers who have a $5 million, $6 million budget they're wanting to buy, right? And if they've been waiting 3 years each and something comes on the market, I can tell you right now it'll sell no matter what. They'll just pay. They'll pay whatever they want for it. They don't, and a lot of the time they're cash buyers too. They are often cash buyers in circumstances like that. Like if you've got money and you want to buy that house and it's exactly where you wanted to live for all of 5, 10 years plus, they will pay whatever they want to get the house. It's just how it works.
So randomly, I believe you may or may not know him, Darren Lyons,
Oh
who's
yeah,
the old mayor of Geelong. He's
yeah, I know who he is. Yeah,
paparazzi king. His property is actually on the market at the moment on Western Road Beach, in which is the Esplanade there in Geelong, and that's hasn't been on the market since he's had that for a very long time. I think at least 30 years he's had that property. It's quite unique. Obviously, he's got his own flavour and taste and style, and it's probably not the absolute premium spot, but it's a very good spot, and yeah, very rare that anything like. I'm just having a super quick look at some of these properties in the Western Beach Road, which is the Esplanade there, and some of these big ones like the apartments probably move a little bit faster. But we've got Nils and Wills, again being transferred across 10 years ago. Another one, Nils and Wills, one here, 1980. They've owned it. Yeah, there's so many. 1991, 1996, Nils and Wills, 2013. So here you go. Like here's one that just sold off market as well, 4.5 million last year
yeah.
off
Very
market.
rare. Very rare. Yeah, very
So
very.
very rare. I mean, waterfront, Geelong. It's just like anywhere, anything near the water and a premium spot, you're never going to lose as long as you hold on to it long enough. The only thing is, some of these ones are just the yields don't stack up, but you're not really buying it for the yield, are you?
No,
You're buying it for the
no.
capital growth and just have a premium property that's just not going to bricks and mortar in right spots, as we know. Location, location, location. You never lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it's obviously been good talking about some of the best opportunities, but just I'll just give it to you with any closing thoughts about the Geelong market, maybe what you see going on, or anything you'd like to say about the region, just for some visitors, some viewers, pardon me, watching.
Yeah, look, I still think, I'm probably a little biased. I live and breathe. I'm a Geelong local, and as I said, I know its limitations. Like it can be very cold winter time, but apart from that, it's a fantastic place to live. I mean, anywhere where you're within 15 minutes to the beach, I think it's just crazy stuff. You got the Bellarine Peninsula, you got wineries close by. You're literally an hour's drive from Melbourne CBD. But then you've also got, the Otways, literally an hour away. Lawn. If you haven't been to Lawn, I mean, have a look, do yourself a favour, go down the Gresham Road. I mean, that is on our doorstep. So, I mean, I feel so very privileged that, it's still got that weird blend of sort of regional feel, but also has the modern luxury of having a bigger city flavour as well. And we're certainly not a big city, but we've got that flavour. We've got that nice blend. It's really good.
Yeah,
I don't know whether it'll still have that flavour in 20 years' time, but
probably not.
but at the moment, I just love the fact that I can head to the MCG, one of the best sporting precincts in the world, literally an hour away on a train. Go watch my footy team, go watch Origin, whatever I want to watch. Soccer. Um, you've just literally got everything here, and that's what I love about it. But you just don't have your traffic. People are still really friendly. Um, and the positive thing is there's still plenty of money to be made here, which is just crazy. So I mean, I'm investing in in Geelong as well myself. um, properties. So I live and breathe what I'm preaching. I know Sam's invested as well. He's living and breathing what he's preaching as well. And all I know is that since Sam and I have been doing business, all his clients are pretty happy. Some of them I would have made, like, from that purchase and the deal, within 12 months they would be making well over $100,000. So savvy buying at the right time. There's absolutely opportunity. As I said, depending on what your strategy looks like, depending on your budget and what you're wanting to do. But if you're looking for, I mean, where can you buy a place for 600 grand in Australia right
Nowhere,
now?
literally. Yeah, nowhere.
Like, even I'm speaking to a buyer agent the other day, and they were saying they were buying up in Tasmania. But Launceston and that just don't have the same infrastructure that we have, and they're the same price. Some of those properties. So you think about the growth, and there's actually, look, talking about growth. There's further road infrastructure and train infrastructure that's going to be coming in. So there's a proposed train station. I'm not sure if it's going through, but it's proposed. They're talking about it. So a train line from Torquay, where you'll be able to go from Torquay Beach to Melbourne. Crazy stuff. There's also a Bellarine link that's going to link from the Bellarine Peninsula right through the back of Geelong. It'll loop around to the Geelong Ring Road, which means you'll be able to go from Melbourne to the Bellarine without going through Geelong CBD. So all those surrounding, so we were St Albans Park, so there's and Breakwater, all that east side is going to be impacted positively from having that road and infrastructure. So you won't have to go through Geelong CBD. You just jump straight on the highway, bang, off you go. I mean, just this infrastructure that they're putting in just shows you the growth in the area. So if you're getting in now, and once the population's in, 500,000, people are going to be scrambling. They're going to be in those growth corridors.
Yeah.
Those inner suburbs that we're talking about now, they probably have, your Geelong locals are probably going, oh, Breakwater, bit rough. But we're talking 40 years ago. It's
Yeah.
diversified,
Yeah.
So opportunities are everywhere. I think, have a chat to Sam. He absolutely knows what he's talking about when it comes to property investment. He does it himself too. I know that. He lives a great life, old Sam. He's bought lots of good properties over the years, and I absolutely love doing straight deals. And that's the thing I like with Sam. He's a straight shooter. He just tells you how it is. And I also work the same. My whole ethos is around just trying to help people and give people service. And hopefully I've given you heaps of information today about the Geelong area and some of the little insights that I've got around, being a local. And I absolutely live and breathe it. It's not just being an agent. I live here, clearly. I could go and move anywhere else. I could have migrated to Queensland when everyone else did. I think Queensland's more of a retirement place for me. There's no real, again, you've got traffic and prices are through the roof. Massive opportunities down here in Geelong. So reach out to Sam, or of course myself, if you have any questions. Happy to
Yeah.
help anyone.
I just want to touch on as well before we finish up, just the lifestyle of Geelong. Like, I think a lot of people don't know how good the lifestyle is. Like, all I'd say to people is just honestly walk along the Esplanade, Cunningham Pier, walk up through, the main streets of Geelong CB, up Packington Street, and just take a drive, honestly, to Torquay out to Lorne, and particularly the two spots I actually like down that way most is YE River and Kennet River. Both of them, particularly Kennet River. There's like a little old school campground along there. It reminds me of like an 80s or 90s campground just by the headland there. That is like beautiful. And I mean, you have all of that literally, I mean, like it's like within half an hour or so away. Like it's not very far, all of those places.
Definitely. The beaches that we talked about, like I personally love Torquay and Jan Juc.
Yeah.
Jan Juc's a surf beach.
Yeah.
Most people, if I said to Jan Juc on this podcast, you'd have no idea where it is.
Yeah.
It's near Bells, so it's not far from Bells. Absolutely scenic, beautiful, 15-minute drive from my house.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. You're one of the best surf beaches in the area. But I take my kids down to Torquay and Barwon Heads. Now, some of these beaches, they're the most absolutely beautiful places, and they're great for kids. So you've got some areas that have got no waves, and the kids can just run around, and they're not going to drown. It's good. They get to have a play and enjoy the beach. And then you've got, if you're a bit, if you're a bit of a surfer and you like the getting out on the waves, anywhere along the Great Ocean Road, Torquay, Ocean Grove, wineries, if you like wineries, the Bellarine and even the Surf Coast, some of the best wineries in the area. Yeah, it's got a lot to it, and you're all within. You don't even look. We don't even need to go to Melbourne now.
No.
You've got everything here in Geelong. You probably, I'm a sport lover, so I go there for sport and a little bit for work, but I don't go there that often, and I don't really want to.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need to. I just come to Geelong, and I'm just waiting for the airport to get bigger here at Avalon. And as the population grows, Avalon's going to be huge, and then we'll be able to fly out from anywhere from Avalon, which would just be
Absolutely. And I mean, I think as well, just in terms of lifestyle, I mean, if you just walk through some of the streets of even some of the inner suburbs of Geelong, especially like Geelong West, South Geelong, anywhere like that, East Geelong, and even if you just take a drive to some of these surf towns, you can feel that there's like a real community in some of these areas. Like you can feel that a lot of people are very house proud in terms of what they've got. They really like the community. You have, in a lot of the coastal communities, you have like little community functions and they all get together on certain times of day there. It's a very common thing. And I think like a lot of areas in the country don't really have that anymore, but I'd say there are definitely areas in Geelong and the Bellarine that still definitely have that without a doubt.
Geelong. The interesting thing about Geelong is everyone knows everyone.
Yes.
You can't escape. It's still a big town, really. It's still a big town. Everybody knows everybody somehow. You'll meet someone, they'll go, "Oh yeah, my uncle's friends with the guy you played footy with 10 years ago, whatever." Everyone seems to know everyone, and it's got that really funky sort of old school clicky vibe. But it's growing, So it is getting bigger, but it still has that feel right now, which is just it's because you can't call it a country town. It's certainly not a country town. So it's when I say it's a hybrid, it really is. It's such a really unique place, and as I said, for traffic, lifestyle, it's so underrated. But I think people are starting to really catch on to the perks of Geelong. So do yourself a favour if you're feeling like getting away. I would say do it in summer or spring, definitely. Come in the warmer months, and it is such a nice place. Like you can have a really nice time here and enjoy what Geelong has to offer. So do yourself a favour and come down. And if you are coming down and want to catch up for a coffee, I'd be more than happy to show you a couple of the sites.
Absolutely. Well, look, we'll take the video to a close now. It's been obviously great talking to you. Just before we close out, how can people get in touch with you if they need to? I will put your details in the link below, but just off the cuff, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So just in closing, I suppose, yeah, I'm not your normal real estate agent. I think Sam will probably attest to that, and maybe you might hopefully get that vibe from our chat today. But to me, it's all about relationships and network. I just try and help people the best way I can, and give. I try and give my knowledge and my expertise to help people. I think that the role of an agent is to obviously sell properties, but also help clients. If you're helping people make money, I feel like I've really done a service to my clients. And I think it comes back tenfold. People then trust you, and then they go, you know what, you're doing, and we trust what you're doing. And it's fantastic. So, yeah, absolutely happy to have a chat with anybody. If anyone wants to just give me a call and have a chat, I'm happy to give you my time and chat about the area, and just talk about Geelong or property or whatever you want. My professional insight, more than happy to share. My best contact number, Jason Cook. Obviously, I'm the director now at the agency here in Geelong, but 0408 or you can email me, of course. I much prefer to talk to you, of course. That's my preference. I'm a bit old school. I like to talk to people, preferably even you come down and have a coffee with me, but you can always call me. Or you can email me, Jason Cook, JasonCook, at theagency.com.au.
Very good. And one thing I will attest to with you is that it's funny because we talk very often, and I mean, a lot of the time, like you'll say to me, I've got these properties, but I know you won't want them because you know exactly what I'm looking for. So what Cookie will actually do is he'll actually self-delete the properties he knows I won't like, and he'll actually and even with deals, like he'll know at a certain level I'll be out and I'll know that at a certain level, I won't want a property and that kind of thing. So the way we often do deals is we try to make it work for everyone. We want it to work for the buyer, we want the seller to be happy and everyone else to be happy, and it just to be a smooth transaction like that. So I mean, the way it kind of works on my end and obviously yours is that there's full transparency. If something's wrong, you're going to hear it's wrong. We're not going to, Cookie wouldn't tell you that the house is perfect if it's not. He'll tell you what is wrong with it. And I think that's a good thing. A lot of agents these days, they don't do that. They just want the sale and then they just want to never hear from you again. So I can attest that you're definitely not one of them, and you do generally take care of your clients, which is a good thing. But look, as I said to everyone, I'll put Cookie's details in the link below, and please reach out to him if you have any questions or you want to have a chat to him. And yeah, it's been really good having you on today's episode, Jason. So thank you for being on.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just wanted to just probably leave on one note. So Sam and I actually work really uniquely compared to probably other buyer agents. For example, if say you reached out to Sam and said, you know what, after hearing your podcast, I'm really keen to get into Geelong, and here's my budget. And say Sam signs you on, and he goes, right, Jason. He'll then call me straight away and go, right, I've got a client looking for this suburb at this price point. Have you got anything? And quite often I don't have it at the time, or I may or may not. But if I don't, what I'll actually do is I'll go hunting for it just for you. So you don't even realize that I'm doing that. But I'll jump on the phone and I'll just call clients or clients I've spoken to, and I'll go, hey, look, I've got a client ready to buy a property. Do you want to sell? And then eventually someone says yes. And then I'll go, hey, Sam, I've got one for you, usually within a week or two. And then we'll do a video. We'll look through it. I'll look through it and I'll go, you know what? It's in not bad, Nick. It probably needs this, this, and this. But it looks structurally sound. And then Sam will present it to you. And then, I'm sort of like the middleman in Geelong. He's eyes in Geelong. And then he'll do a building and pest, obviously, for your peace of mind. We'll have a look at that, make sure that that's all good. Majority of the time, they're pretty sound. If there's an issue, we'll talk about that. And then you've bought a really, really good structurally sound property that's going to hold up, and a good investment that's going to hold up for a long period of time. And that's where then we've got that relationship. You've obviously got Sam, and then you've got myself in the Geelong region as well. So more than happy to help anybody, and it's always great to see Sam. It's good to see you, mate. I haven't seen you for a while. So we've got to do a deal soon. So we haven't done a deal for a little while. So we've got to find something for you.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'll close out there. Thank you for being on again. I really appreciate it. And please, everyone, reach out to Cookie if you have the chance to or want to. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. All right.
Cheers.